Hello. This is going to be a bit of a different video. Funny, first off, before we even start, this web page seems to change the zoom. That's the same hotkey as my record button. Great start. Anywho, already off to a great start. I'm not even really sure how this is going to go. I'm kind of just testing the waters here. I don't even know if I'm going to upload this. We'll see. We'll see. If you're seeing this, then apparently it was acceptable. I don't know. We'll find out. I'm kind of just throwing stuff at the wall here. We're trying something new. So, as some people who watch me or know of me or have talked to me before know, I'm a pretty big enthusiast of tabletop RPGs, right? Big D&D player. I've played some other systems, but it seems to be the one that I always end up coming back to. And I'm currently running the pre-made adventure Curse of Strahd for a group of more or less new people. There's some mild experience among two of the members, but the other two it's completely new to them. They've maybe seen stuff, but they've never actually played before. And so I thought, like, I guess the reason that spurred me onto this is that we took a bit of a hiatus for about a month from our sessions, and I kind of wanted to basically review everything to get myself back up to speed on it. And I thought, maybe I could just take this to show people what it's like. I don't know if maybe you're interested in seeing kind of like what a peek behind the screen is, if maybe you're a player and you've never DM'd before and you kind of want to see like what the prep work is like, the general mentality, or I don't know, maybe you don't play at all and you just kind of want to like get that fix from you. Maybe you're struggling to find people to play with or something. I don't know. This goes without saying. Hi, it's Folon. If you're one of these four players here, if you're one of these guys, why are you on this video? Get out. No, you're not welcome. I'm sorry. And I will know if you watch this. I'll know. I will know. And all of the gods across the Forgotten Realms will not be able to save you or your character from my wrath. Fear not. So now that disclaimer's out of the way, if you're one of these guys, get out of here. Now's your last chance. Because we're going into some heavy spoiler territory. For you all, at least. Also, on that note, if you have any, even just, I would say, a passing interest in playing the Curse of Strahd module, get out of here now, because I'm going to be spoiling a lot of it, right? That's kind of the part of the prep, is you got to, like, show where things are going, you got to, like, kind of direct the story, more or less. Now, if you are running the game or, interested in running it, you don't think you're ever going to play it, or you think you're going to run it before you play it, probably fine. But, personally, I would say if you are like, hey, I'm going to be a player and we're going to be playing Curse of Strahd here in like a week, I would not recommend you watch any of these videos. Granted, I can't stop you, but that's just my recommendation. So now that all of those disclaimers are out of the way, let's just dive right in. So basically where my party left off, to kind of give a quick rundown for just in case you're brand new and you've never even heard of this, Curse of Strahd is a module is what they're called, that's the actual term, where basically the players are spirited away to this strange land, this demi-plane called Barovia, right? And so if I like really zoom out here, we can get a good view of the map. Now you may be saying, haha, the place is called Barovia up here. Why is there the village of Barovia? Great question. I wish I could answer that for you. I cannot. Anywho, moving on. The players, through one way or another, the book gives you a couple ways to kind of help get them in here, basically. But your players are going to find themselves trapped in this land. And what's essentially going down is there's a big bad vampire in this castle right here on the K. Okay, yeah, my cursor is being captured, so you can see that. I'm circling it right here. That castle is run by the Lord Strahd von Zarevich, and he's kind of just like the big bad here. He's the big ruler of everything. Everyone fears him. He's the guy everyone knows about, right? And you can't leave or enter Barovia unless he wants you to. And every now and then he'll just kind of let, rando adventurers come in and do their thing, do their adventurer thing. And, maybe they like do something interesting because since it's such a secluded area, it's like its own little demi-plane, really. Not a lot of like new stuff happens here. And Strahd, unfortunately, and here's what I'm talking about with the spoiler stuff if you're a player, Strahd can't actually leave. He's trapped here. He's cursed to stay here in this place. Now, he's the absolute ruler of it, but he can't actually leave. So that's kind of, at least from my viewpoint, his the reason why he drags adventurers in here, or like entices them in, right? Is to kind of spice things up, right? So that's kind of a general overview. Your players will go through the various locations of Barovia, trying to basically find out more about the place, learn a bit more about Strahd, what he's like, and also his weaknesses, and eventually they will confront him and defeat him. Some of the major milestones along this are they are looking for various artifacts that will help them in their journeys and also battles. And they are also looking for potential allies that will assist them as well. So I can't even begin to give examples really, because there's so many. The book has this really cool thing where you can draw off of like a deck of cards, and it pseudo randomizes like where the artifacts are located, who the ally is. Really, really cool idea. But that's a basic overview. Honestly, now that I think about it, I really should have started with this. This is going to be a very rambly video. There's no organization. If you expected me to have like notes and an outline of how I'm going to go through this, no. This is just stream of consciousness. This is how I plan. This is how I go over things. This is how I think of things. So I'm sorry in advance that it's not going to make any sense. But you know, if you can take one thing away from it, then I guess that's a win in my book. A little background on me. I have been playing tabletop RPGs, really, I would say specifically tabletop ones, since about when 5th edition started. I did a little bit before, but not really enough that I would even really quantify it. I started playing consistently right around the dawn of 5th edition, and I have been since then. Mostly weekly, kind of, through various groups and across multiple campaigns that'll fizzle or whatever it is. Though lately, my particular play group, we've gotten a lot better about actually like buckling down and going through them. But that's irrelevant. So yeah, that's a bit of a background on me. I've been a player through most of that. This is the first campaign that I've actually like really DM'd. I've DM'd a couple short ones that are like, you know, a couple sessions long, like 5 sessions long, or a couple one-shots, but I've never DM'd like an actual full-fledged campaign that has like story arcs and, you know, people really put time and motivation into their characters and what they're like, and it isn't just kind of like a have fun, you know, whatever happens one-shot sort of deal. So I guess what I'm trying to show here is that I'm very amateurish at this. I would like to think that I have a decent grasp of like the mechanics and the rules of the system at this point, but when it comes to actual DMing, very poor. And the reason why I'm showing this off is not for me to be like, oh, look at how good I am at DM. No, I know I'm bad at it. And the reason why I'm showing you is because I know there are some people out there, because I was like this as well, who think, you know, wow, D&D or Call of Cthulhu or whatever tabletop RPG that is your particular cup of tea, it's so fun. I love being a player, but nobody wants to DM because everyone's scared to. Right? It's like got this like weird, almost like mystique around it of like, you have to be like incredible to be a DM. No, not true. Absolutely not true. You can just dive right into it and just get in there and just start doing it, right? And that's the best way to learn. And yeah, you're going to make mistakes. Everyone does. You make mistakes as a player when you first start, right? And you just kind of, you know, make little fixes as you go, and that's it, really. There's no like big secret. There's no like, you know, test you have to take before you can become a DM or a GM or whatever it is. You can just do it, you know? Just get in there, start rolling dice, have fun. It's a game. Don't let people gatekeep you out of a game. You know, it's the whole point of this stuff is for it to be entertaining. So that's one of the big points I wanted to get out of the way. I'm going to try and share some tips that I have personally learned over the course of what little experience I have DMing, in case there is anyone out there who is new and looking for advice. I don't know if I have the best advice, but I will tell you what works for me. And hopefully that it will work for you, or you can find a way to make it work for you and your play group. Because that's the biggest thing, is it's going to be different between every single person, right? Because everyone plays the stuff completely differently, and that's one of the things that I love about tabletop RPGs is you can completely change and customize them to whatever you want them to be, really, which is incredible. So now that all of that rambling is out of the way, I've given you kind of a basic overview of the module, I suppose. I guess I'll dive a little bit more into that. very, very, well, there's not really like, so some of the other 5th edition modules, like, uh, what is it? Horde of the Dragon Queen or whatever? The dragon one with Tiamat. Um, some of those, they're very, like, linear in the sense that you have very much just like a set track that you're going through. You've probably heard the term railroad, where you don't really have much deviation. The set events will happen, and there's not really a lot of, the book doesn't give you a lot of room to wiggle in and amongst that. Curse of Strahd is what is often referred to as the opposite of that. It is a sandbox where really outside of the very beginning where your players are going to get spit out here into the village of Barovia, they're going to come out through these gates here and, you know, they're going to play around in the village here. From there, you know, they're based on like how the map is designed, they're probably going to run into Serpool really early just because, you know, it's something on the map that's nearby. But like beyond that, there's not really like a big hook to pull your players in certain directions. They can really just kind of go wherever they want. You can nudge them in certain ways, but I mean, like, if your players, you know, they leave, like, the village of Barovia and they say, yo, what's down here on, like, Mount Gakis here? We're gonna go check that out. Like, there's nothing that's stopping them, right? Like, they can go do that. Would I recommend that? No, there's probably scary stuff here. I haven't even read what's down here. Maybe there's nothing down here. I don't know. Who knows? You figure it out on the fly, right? Or maybe your players are like, hey, I just want to go to Krezk. I'm really interested in Krezk over here. Let's just go see what's going on. And that's totally fine. I tend to prefer these styles of games where the player agency, they can just kind of go where they want and do what they want, and they're free to make mistakes, and, you know, it's just very freeing. So that's one of the reasons that I really, really like this particular module. I will say that if you are, say, a DM and you're looking and you're like, hey, I don't know if I want to, you know, do I want to, oh, I'm very sorry, there's an ambulance going nearby. Hopefully that didn't pick up. It probably did. If you're a DM and you're looking for a module to run with your group, right? Or something, right? I know, for example, like for me, I started running modules instead of homebrew stuff just because I don't have the time to put into a homebrew. So it's a really good way to just kind of get going. And there's a lot of choices out there. So if you're kind of trying to pick what the best one is for you and your play group, I would say that Curse of Strahd is probably like maybe 60% roleplay and like 40% combat. It leans pretty heavy into the roleplay aspect. So if that's what your group likes, if your group really likes kind of digging into, you know, talking to like weird hag people, or like there's like a den of werewolves somewhere up here, I think, if I remember correctly. Strahd himself likes to interact with the party. He basically likes to show up and just kind of shit talk them and be like, haha, you guys are losers. I'm the all-powerful vampire lord. Wahahaha, right? There's not a lot of like just bogged down in combat. Here we go. There is combat in this adventure. Don't get me wrong. However, I think this adventure really truly shines in that like kind of intrigue, gothic horror vibe. So if that's what you're into, that's what your players are into, this will be a great one. If your players are like, we like to do hardcore dungeon hex crawl, this is probably not for them. Don't mind me, just gonna take a quick sip of my beverage. Refreshing. So that's enough about the module. That's enough about me. I'm gonna get into kind of just doing what I'm doing what I normally do. So normally, I would just go where my players left off, which my particular players, they have done the Serpool, the Village of Barovia, the Death House, yada, yada, yada. They've done some of this stuff, and they are currently at the Old Bone Grinder, which is a windmill that is, first off, very zoomed out. Here we go. It's a windmill that's run by some hags right now. And normally I would just pick up here and I would kind of figure out what's going on, and I'll explain what's really happened here with them. But personally, since it's been so long, I really need a refresher on, like, what they were doing in general. And this kind of ties into the really the only thing I had in my mind going into this video that I wanted to get across. is if you are a new DM or you're an inexperienced DM, or I don't know, maybe even if you are experienced and you've never seen this type of play, one thing that I highly, highly, highly recommend that I think makes games so much more engaging, so much more enjoyable for not only the players, but for everyone involved, is that if you are running a module like this, homebrew it's a bit different because homebrews typically tend to be designed around the players to begin with, but if you're running a module like Curse of Strahd or any of the pre-mades, really, I highly recommend that you get with your players at character creation. And what I want you to do is I want you to really talk with them about like kind of what their story is for their character, their backstory, how they became adventurers and whatnot. You probably already do this to some degree, right? You tell your players, write up a backstory, you read it, whatever. Now, what I want you to do then is once you have that, really look at the module and try and find as many ways as you can to tie those backstories into the module. So one of the downsides of Curse of Strahd, if I go back to the map here, is that because you're just jutted off into this like demi-plane here, where really everything is self-contained, my players' backstories are very difficult to be relevant here. Like I have a player here. I'll use Roland as an example. He's an easy one. Roland is a lord. He's a lord of a house in Baldur's Gate, and that's kind of like, yeah, that's really cool for like a Forgotten Realms adventure that takes place in Baldur's Gate. He can really throw his title around. There's going to be intrigue with that. There are probably rival lord factions that aren't into him. You know, they don't like what his family does, yada yada. Anywho, but here it doesn't really matter because no one here knows of Baldur's Gate. No one here knows of the Sword Coast. No one here has heard of House Leoden. It's just a made up title. I just made up the Lord House. Whatever, right? And so that's it feels bad, right? If you're the player, if I'm playing as Roland and I'm like, man, I'm really excited to be this kind of like snooty, snobby noble, maybe, right? And I really want to kind of throw my weight around and do stuff like that. You come to Barovia and you don't have any of that. It's all just stripped from you. So try to find ways to incorporate your characters' backstories as best you possibly can into the story. So I'm just going to go through all of my four characters here. Well, my four characters. My four players' characters, not my characters. Oh, Lord, the DM possession is coming out. My perfect little world. So I'm gonna kind of run through those really quick for everyone, mostly as a refresher for myself. And I don't know if anyone's actually interested in what's going on here, then you can kind of get a background for what they're doing. And I'm gonna use I'm going to show examples of what I've tried to do to tie this in. I'm still very new to this. This is the first time I've actually done this, but I played in a campaign that started to do this very recently, and it kind of gave me the inspiration for it. So I don't know. Normally I'd go down the list, but Praetor's a bit of a weird one. So I'm gonna start with Roland just because he's a really easy one to start with. So, Roland's just, you can read this paragraph if you want, yada yada, right? So I'll give you the spark notes on it. Roland was he is a drow, who basically at a young age there was a conflict between a high elven house and the drow, and basically the drow were wiped out, and poor young Roland was left the only survivor. And so what ended up happening was a pair of high elves took him in as like a kid. They were like, hey, we're not gonna like kill the kid, right? That's messed up. And so they took him in and raised him. And basically kind of taught him like how to be like a lord, what's going on in Baldur's Gate, blah, 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 whatnot. Set him up as the successor of the house. And unfortunately, his parents were found assassinated. And so Roland is currently trying to figure out kind of what happened, why they were assassinated, who did it, et cetera, et cetera. Really, that's what kind of drove him to be an adventurer. And I want to take a quick kind of like pause here to say, if you are a player, let's say you've played this module before, or you don't think you're ever going to play it and you're just watching this, a tip that I want to give you is don't do what Roland did and kill off all of the valuable members of your family. It's kind of like a meme, right, in the D&D community of like, oh, my parents and my family are dead and I'm a lone wolf and I have no ties to the world. And the issue with that is that it's very hard to spur those characters to do anything, right? Why are they even on the adventure? You know, what reason do they have to be tied to anything if you've basically like scorched earth, cut off all of your all of your ties to the world, right? Like if you have no parents, then you know you have no brothers, no sisters, no loved ones, no one that you care about, no one that knows you, no friends. You've just lived in the woods as a hermit for the past 15 years. Like, why are you adventuring? Why wouldn't you just continue to live in the woods? Maybe you do have a reason for that. But what I'm saying is that I tend to try to dissuade people from doing this. I do also want to note that it's kind of funny that Roland is literally a double orphan. He was orphaned from his drow family, and then he was orphaned from his high elf family. Pretty wild. First time I've ever seen something like that. But really, if you're a player, try to leave something for your DM to tie you to the world if you can't yourself. I know some play groups, they'll leave that more to player agency. Personally, I tend to leave that to my DM. I kind of give them the tools and then say, however you can best make it fit, make it fit. I trust you, right? Some people, not as much into that. They'd rather, you know, physically make those ties, and it's totally fine. But try and find something to ground your character in the world. And let's say even then, if you don't want to do that, and you do want to be the guy who's lived in the woods by himself for 15 years, at least have some reason for adventuring. Have some reason to be hanging out with the party. Like anything, you know, just have something there. Because it's really going to help you kind of elevate your RP encounters, both with the NPCs of the world and also your fellow party members, right? They're going to be able to talk to you about different stuff and really kind of dive into your character a lot easier if there's something to talk about, right? Like, you know, you have your first conversation of, hey, what have you done? I've lived in the woods my entire life alone. Oh, okay, what was that like? It was lonely. I hunted, and that's it. And then now, like, where do you go, right? Like, where do you go now? You're stuck. You've hit an impasse because there's nowhere left to go. You fully explored everything that you can. And so at that point, you're kind of just waiting for things to happen in the campaign to then discuss those. I'm not a fan of that. Try and leave yourself wiggle room. You don't want to leave yourself too broad, right? You don't want to go too crazy and be like, I don't know. You don't want to be too generic, I guess, or too open-ended to the point where you've got too many possible directions to go. I can't really even think of a good example just because I've never seen anything like that. But you need something, right? Yeah, I really feel like you need something to ground you. So now that aside's out of the way, that complete and utter tangent, what I've done with Roland, and he kind of made it easy. I used him as an example for why you shouldn't just kill off your parents and your loved ones and whatnot. But with Roland's situation, it's a bit different just because since his parents, his high elven parents were assassinated, he does have a drive, a call to adventure, which is trying to find the assassin, trying to figure out what happened, trying to figure out why they were killed. And so it was an easy out for me to try and tie him into the Curse of Strahd campaign by saying, well, someone in Barovia killed his parents. So for those of you who are unaware, there's a group of people in this module called the Vistani. They are allowed free passage in and out of this demi-plane for, you know, a long time ago, their ancestors helped out Strahd in a pinch. And he was like, you guys are cool. You can come and go as you please. You have free reign into my kingdom, right? And so the Vistani can come and go. They've kind of like got a gypsy vibe to them, really. Very, very kind of party people. Typically spend whatever money they get immediately on like good times, food, drink, whatnot. And sometimes they'll make their way back into Barovia just kind of to peep around, see what's going on. They come and go as they please, right? So there's one specific Vistani named Aragol. Let me pull up this dude while I'm talking about him. Who one of the things this book does is it gives you various reasons to have your players enter here, and one of them is that this man here, Aragol, he comes in like a heavy disguise, a heavy Vistani disguise, I should say. Oh, excuse me. And he comes to your players with a note, with a letter. And he slams it down in front of them and he says, Excuse me, I'm very sorry. I'm a little burpy right now. Kind of gross. I'm sorry. But he slams it down on the table in front of your players, and your classic, like, you start at the end, yada yada, right? And he says, hey, I've been sent by the Burgomaster, which is the ruler, basically, of the village of Barovia. They're asking for your help. We've got a bunch of riches. Come help us out, and we'll reward you handsomely. And then he dips, basically. He'll answer some basic questions about, like, who it is, yada yada. It's all nonsense. Aragol doesn't work at all for the village of Barovia. The letter he sends is completely forged. It's all nonsense. It was actually written by Strahd himself, and it's a tie to just basically lure people into the realm. So what I've done here is I've had Aragol, as he and his, like, kind of whatever Vistani band he was hanging out with at the time, they were chilling, hanging out in Baldur's Gate, and Aragol got wind of this drow, son of a high elf house. And one of the things I didn't really discuss about Roland's backstory is that, like, a lot of the other noble houses and those of, like, the High Elven community, I don't really know if there are High Elven communities in Baldur's Gate. I want to get this very clear. I'm using a very loose structure of the Forgotten Realms. I'm basically just using it for maps. And any lore that needs to be changed, I change on a whim. Highly recommend that for anyone else who's DMing, but I understand some purists are not going to be cool with that. I'm sorry. But it's my game, so anywho, the other High Elven communities were kind of like not cool with his parents for doing this. There was a lot of tension because they're like, yo, you brought like a drow in here. They're like our mortal enemies, right? What's up with that? And Aragol capitalized on this because he was trying to look to pull people into Barovia anyway, and he was like, you know, this is a jackpot right here. Kill the dude's parents. The racial tension basically between the other High Elven nobles are going to kick him out. He's going to have nowhere to go from there. Bada bing, bada boom, easy cash. So Aragol here is the one who slew Roland's parents. He may be saying, how on earth is he ever going to find that out? I will get to that later, I promise. The next step of this is after you've made the ties, hinting them towards your players. But that's kind of the game plan going on. Personally, when I was trying to set these ties up for every single character, I wanted 2 ties minimum. Unfortunately, I was really only able to get about 2 ties with most people. So this was my first tie. The first one that came to my mind was I had Aragol. He's already got like is he an assassin? I think he is. Yeah, assassinate. Yeah, he's already got the stat block of an assassin. So it made it pretty easy for me to just be like, yeah, he killed his parents, whatever, right? Easy money, easy cash. So that was my first tie. The second tie, and I'm not sure if I can find it very well because I don't remember their name, but over here in Vallaki, there is there's like a small little settlement like off to the side, like up here or something. I don't remember where exactly. I think it is to the north a bit. Of drow, of dark elves who, I'm going to be honest, I haven't read much about Vallaki and what's going on here, so I don't fully know their deal hundo percent. I don't want to say anything that's just wrong. But that was kind of the other tie that I was looking for. What I understand, they're trapped in here in Barovia as well. They pissed off Strahd doing something. I don't remember what it was, and he basically killed off all the women in their community. And since elves are so long-lived and they can't like procreate anymore without, you know, any females, they're kind of in dire straits about that. So since Roland did choose to be a dark elf, which is more of like an exotic race, right, compared to like human or, you know, I guess a regular elf being like a wood elf or a high elf, the drow kind of have like a stigma about him. So I thought that this would be a good tie-in just to see how he reacts to that. I don't really know if Roland has any particular strong feelings one way or the other about other drow. I'm not really sure. And that's kind of what I wanted to see him explore. I wanted to see what he comes up with when he does that. So we'll see what happens when they get there. I'm sure they will go there eventually. I mean, I know they're on their way to the Vallaki, but I'm sure they'll check out that camp, and we'll see what happens there. Who do I even go with next? The next person I think I'm going to go with is Garrick here. So Garrick, oh good God, Garrick, did you even write a bio? Yeah, okay, over here. So basically, Garrick's deal is he's a half-orc, and pretty much what I love the page references for his stuff here. I don't know. Sometimes I don't really go like peeking in on other players' character sheets much. Oh, go away, DM. So it's kind of funny to see like their perspective on this stuff. But Garrick's deal, anyway, moving on. His whole shtick is that his mother was exiled from their I don't want to say barbarian, but they're like, you know, kind of tribe, basically. They're barbarian tribe. I don't want to say barbarian, I'm gonna say it. Probably because like he is a barbarian. Anywho, they got exiled from it when he was a young kid. And basically one day him and his mother were living off in the woods just trying to get by, and they were attacked by a boar. And during the chaos of all of that, Garrick ended up slaying the boar or driving it off. I don't remember which. Sure, it's probably in here somewhere. Yeah, okay, he scared it away. It's not really that important, but he lost his mother in the process. Don't know where she went. And that's pretty much all I had to work with on this. And I guess this is what I was going to, in that you don't want to be too open-ended because, like, there's a ton of possibilities here, but none of them are strong enough that you really want to go in a direction just in case, like, it's not what your player wants, right? This is one where normally I would have to really sit down with Garrick and, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Discuss what his visions are for the character. The issue is that I wanted to keep a lot of the setting a surprise, because it was like my characters aren't going to know that, or well, I guess I should say the characters aren't going to know that they're getting, you know, kicked into a demi-plane. Why should the players? And I thought, you know, that would kind of, it would make role-playing a bit more natural, I suppose. But one of the downsides of that is that, you know, it was kind of hard to tie any of this into Barovia. So what I ended up coming up with is that since one important detail, though, is that Garrick specifically mentions that his mother is lost. He doesn't say that she died. He didn't find her corpse or anything. He just says lost. So that leaves his mother alive for something to happen with. And unfortunately for poor Garrick, what has happened is that his mother unfortunately found her way into Barovia and has been enthralled by Strahd. Strahd likes to, he's not even a bit, he's literally just a womanizer. He will often find women that he finds attractive, he will seduce them, he will turn them into vampire brides, and basically have them do his bidding as long as they entertain him, and then he just kind of casts them aside when he's done with them. In one of these, there's like a bit that shows three important vampire brides in the castle, I believe, that have a big thing. One of them's gonna be Garrick's mom. I'm just gonna gut the name I'm just gonna like change the name and the situation a bit. And basically my game plan with this is I want to see what Garrick does, right? Like I want to see how he reacts to finally finding his mother that he's been looking for so long, presumably, only to see that she's been turned into this horrible creature, right? This vampire spawn. Is he going to kill her to give her like a merciful death? Is he going to do everything he can to try and find a way to cure her? I don't know, and we'll figure out as we go. I'm curious to see what he ends up choosing with that. The other tie that I kind of had to do some writing on my own for, because I wanted two ties to everyone, is I kind of just force-tied Garrick to be basically the half-brother of Irina. So I haven't mentioned Irina until now. She is a very integral part of the story. Basically, Irina's deal is she was basically just found in the woods by the burgomaster of Barovia and adopted, and Strahd is infatuated with her. Now, I'll dive more into this, but I've changed a good bit of how Irina works. I will dive into more of this with a different character. But Irina, in my version of it, she basically was born before Garrick. She's older than him. Garrick's mother was married to another man from the tribe, which was then attacked by orcs. And well, you can probably put two and two together on that front. I don't really want to elaborate more into that. It's a little weird. But Irina was lost, and she found her way into Barovia through one way or another. It doesn't really matter how. Then she got picked up by the burgomaster of Barovia, yada, yada, yada. Here's where we are. That's the other tie that I gave to him. It's not a strong one. I'm not super pleased with it, but Irina is a character that's going to be around for a good while, so I at least thought that there would be like a lot of roleplay between the two of them. Even if it's not like a really super big reveal, interesting tie, I at least thought that it'll get a lot of mileage, right? There will be a lot of times where they can talk and they can really play off of this, depending on how quickly he figures this out. That Irina is his half-sister. Who knows? So, I don't know. It's not one that I'm super pleased with, but it's one that I think will at least get a lot of playtime. And that's another tip that I want to just kind of, as an aside, say that you can do all the planning in the world you want. You can just really write up an entire book of lore for your world. But if your players don't ever see it, then there's like not a lot of point, in my opinion. Like, that's a lot of effort that doesn't really go anywhere. It's cool for you, right? You get to like think of all the cool stuff that's happening in this world, but D&D is in tabletop RPGs in general, they're a community-driven thing, right? They're a group project. Think of it like a group storytelling effort. So if your other players don't ever know about any of that stuff, then in my opinion, you shouldn't have even written it, right? Like maybe not that to that degree. There's stuff that you should know that's going on in the background and it'll just be revealed later. But if you're just writing stuff that's never going to be seen, I kind of don't get it. Unless you like personally really enjoy doing that, you know, it's not my jam, I guess. To each their own, though. But that's pretty much the whole rundown on Mr. Garrick here. I'll save Leah for last because she's going to be the wildest one here. So we'll go with Praetor Mundus. Praetor here, he I think he prefers to be called by his full name, but I just go Praetor every time because it's a little weird otherwise. Praetor's deal is a little similar to Garrick in that, like, Praetor has a very interesting story, but there's not really a lot of ties for him. What essentially happened is he remembers going through... He's a tiefling. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so burpy right now. Dear Lord. Very sorry. I'm trying to hide those from the camera, and there's no camera from the mic, I suppose. But he's a tiefling who went through a portal and ended up underneath a blue leaf tree, right, as like an infant. And essentially what ended up happening is that Roland's parents also found Praetor and took him in, and they kind of have this weird like brother dynamic going on. They grew up together sort of deal. Roland is older than Praetor to my knowledge by a significant amount, but as kind of their like dynamic to tie those two together. But that's really about it. Like he had like a necklace on that said Praetor Mundus, yeah, and that's really all that's going on with his backstory. Now, normally, like I said, you don't want to be too vague and not really have any direct ties. However, one thing that I really, really like that Praetor did here, and he didn't do this knowingly, which makes it even better, is that because he came through this like portal, right? He opens up the cosmology of the planes into this campaign, which is something that I find can be difficult to jump into and just kind of work in if it's something that you think is interesting and that your players would find interesting. It's kind of hard to just like dive into that and introduce it naturally. But Praetor has a direct tie to it. So for those unaware, basically the way the D&D world works is there are kind of like different dimensions, I suppose, called the planes. Maybe dimensions is a wrong word. I don't know. I don't know a good way to explain it. But the different planes, there's a ton of them. There's an insane amount of different planes. But some like examples that are pretty easy to think of is, for example, there are the think of like Dante's Inferno version of the 9 circles of hell. Each of the circle of hell would be its own plane, which is like, I don't know, like a world basically. Where like the first layer is Avernus and it's got its whole deal going on, yada yada. Another plane would be like, is it Mount Celestia? Is that the heavenly plane? There's also the ethereal and astral planes, which are like the astral plane is kind of like the space between all of this stuff. It's like this weird timeless region. It's a whole very unique thing to this setting. Maybe not unique. I'm sure there are other IPs and franchises that do similar stuff, but it's something that I find very, very interesting and really, really cool to kind of dive into. And so because Praetor here, he's tied himself to that from coming through this portal and being multiplanar, and then even beyond that, he's decided to become a Horizon Walker Ranger. Here we are. There it is. It really opens the door to that for me. So what I've done with Praetor is, first off, he kind of shares the tie with Roland in that their parents were slain by Aragorn. That one's a bit more geared for Roland because Praetor doesn't seem super duper tied to like his High Elven parents. I don't know, maybe he just hasn't shown it yet, but from the gist that I've gotten in the roleplay, it's not like a very deep tie to his character for him. So instead what I've done is, and I'm going to preface this by saying, as a DM, you should never do this. Don't do what I did. Do as I say, not as I do in this specific regard. But I basically introduced my own character into his backstory in the sense that I personally, when I started this campaign, had just finished a playthrough of a different module, Descent into Avernus. So I was very intimate with that plane, right? I was very, very familiar with what's going on in Avernus, the whole situation there, yada yada, with Zariel, etc. And I personally played as an Aasimar, what's the word? The Celestial Lock. There we go. Who got her prowess from a relative of Zariel. And so I kind of had this like whole dynamic going on with Zariel, yada yada. Anyway, I'm not going to soapbox about my personal character. What I am going to tell you, though, is that basically I extrapolated where I saw that character being, and that I kind of saw her trying to take up Zariel's mantle and running Avernus, and just trying to keep like the status quo going there so that the material plane doesn't get swamped with stuff. And I kind of just like pushed her into Praetor's backstory. He didn't really have, because I asked him, I was like, do you have any like particular, thoughts of what's going on with Praetor's backstory? Do you want to just leave all that to me and I'll make something up, whatever? And I didn't really get a committed answer, so eventually I had to make something up because I was like, I need something to put this dude in the story. I need something to tie him in. So kind of what I ended up concocting here is that I've taken some liberties in Strahd's backstory, in the sense that Strahd became a vampire in his backstory through making a bargain with this dark power known as Vampire, which is, they're literally just called like the Dark Powers, and there's like a shadowy big bad that you don't really interact with except for once at the Amber Temple. Maybe. You don't even really have to. And what I ended up doing is instead of making Vampire this just like ominous background entity that ultimately doesn't really matter, I feel, except for lore purposes. I've made Vampire one of the demon lords of the Abyss instead. Something like Grost, where Vampire has his own plane in the Abyss. He's got his own machinations and plans going on and whatnot. And basically, the ruler of Avernus, my character, my old character, Lilius. You could also just use Zariel as this. I might just use Zariel because God, every time I think about it, it's so bad. Don't ever introduce your own player characters into your campaign as like a power fantasy. It's weird. It's just a weird thing to do. Don't be weird. It's my number one tip. Don't be a weirdo. But basically, for those who aren't aware, demons are constantly invading the first plane of hell, known as Avernus, through the river Styx. They pop up out of it, and they're trying to overrun it, because demons just want to like overrun everything, pretty much. They're chaotic evil. They just want to spread misery, mayhem, and destruction where they can, however they can. And their ways of going about that vary between each demon, yada yada. So what Zariel is trying to do, or alternatively my character Lilius, is that they're trying to stop the demon tide, basically. The way I have envisioned the river Styx is that anytime a demon basically gets past, like breaks through the lines, the blood war that's going on in Avernus between devils and demons, they then make their way to the material plane. So that's why this character Lilius is running over Avernus, is ruling over it, because she's trying to just make sure that as few to zero demons as possible make their way into the material plane and like cause havoc, right? As if she can hold the line forever, then that'll keep that place safe, right? Even if she has to, be the ruler of a plane of hell. Not really her jam. And that was kind of what Zariel was doing as well, right? So, I have Vampire as this Abyss Lord to kind of basically make Strahd at odds with this being Zariel / Lilius in my example. And what I've done is I've had Praetor. I haven't really ironed out the full details. I haven't thought about it. I don't know. If you have any ideas also for any storyboarding stuff, just let me know. I'm totally open to any sort of feedback, so I'm still trying to figure some of this out. I haven't super ironed out all of it. But Zariel / Lilia / whatever, the big bad ruler of Avernus, has taken interest in Praetor. She knows about his origins. I don't know what they are yet, but she knows about them. And she's willing to basically help him in exchange for him and his party deposing Strahd, dealing with Strahd. Strahd is doing, he's bad for some reason. He's gonna do Vampire's will on the material plane. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. And I guess this is kind of like another hint I can give you, is that like, you don't always need super duper concrete ties into why everything works the way it works. Because from my personal experience, both as a DM and as a player, your players will make those ties for you. So like, I can just say like, I don't know, it doesn't matter why Strahd is a threat to the material plane. They'll figure out some reason that he is. And if it's plausible, just roll with it. Just let them do it, you know? They'll never know. And what's even better is that they will feel so incredibly smart when the big reveal happens. They were like, I called it, I was right all along, you know? And the truth of the matter is, you didn't have any clue. They made it up, and you just rolled with it, right? But they're gonna feel like, you know, they've outwitted you, DM. They figured out your story before you did, right? And it's always kind of a fun moment with that. And just let them have that, right? So that's really everything going on with Praetor here. Again, this is probably the one I'm least satisfied with, mostly just because I added my own stupid freaking character into it, which I never should have done, but it's too far gone at this point. I should have just made it Zariel. It would have been way better. Ugh. Anyway, moving on to probably the weirdest one of the bunch is good old Leah Moonflower here. So Leah has probably my favorite backstory out of all of the player characters. Her whole deal is that she was born between, she was born to a lord, oh, here it is, a noble high elf, and basically that noble's maid, and that's pretty bad, right? Like she's the bastard child of this noble, so she had to be like, you know, the maid was like kicked out, yada yada, and eventually what ended up happening is that rumors of this lord's bastard child came out, and he's like, hey, I can't be having, you know, potential heirs to my power just lurking around, so I'm gonna hunt you down. It's a very, very interesting and very like grounded, gritty, realistic backstory. This is very reasonably something that would happen in a D&D world, right? This doesn't seem far-fetched at all. Hell, this is something that probably happens in the normal world, right? This probably happened in the real world back in the Middle Ages all the time, right? So I really enjoy that about it. But again, the issue is that it doesn't leave me a lot of room in Barovia to tie anything to, because like, what is her noble dad gonna cross the barrier into Barovia to hunt her down? No, that's ridiculous. That's insanity, right? Like, I don't know, maybe there's like a line where he like finds his way in as like a Vistani or something. I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of cool line that you could do there, but what instead that I did, and this is probably I think this is the final tip that I really had in my brain at the start of this video. Where are we going back? Going back to Irina here. My final tip is that if you do want to run Curse of Strahd, there's a Reddit post that I've lost the link to, but I just copied a lot of it down and took a bunch of notes on it. But I'll try and find it and put it in the description, of someone who wrote up a really good guide to running Curse of Strahd and making changes to basically enhance it, like a 2.0 version. And one of the biggest points that they made that I never really considered until I read it, and I totally, completely, 100% agree with, is that the way the adventure is written, Irina here, as written in the book, she has the soul of Strahd's long-lost lover. And because of that, Strahd is constantly after her. Oh, sorry, he's gunning for Irina to try and get her to marry him, because like he longs for this woman, and he's tried countless times, and that's the whole curse of Strahd, quote unquote, is that no matter how hard he tries, he will never be able to get the love of his life, Tatiana, or any of her reincarnations. And so it's a cool story, don't get me wrong, it's a cool idea. The only problem is that the way it's set up, it sets Irina up as the main character, right? Like, basically everything that Strahd is doing, he's doing because he's going for Irina. And your player characters are just kind of like Irina's bodyguards. And that feels really lame. Like, your player characters are the player characters. The story should revolve around them, not some rando NPC, right? So what this Reddit post suggested doing, and what I ended up doing, ended up taking the advice, is to nix that. To just say, like, yo, Irina, not the reincarnation of Tatiana, one of your players is. And that's what I've done with Leah. Leah here, fortunately enough for me, and I was thinking, how on earth do I do this? She's a half-elf, but she's also a sorcerer. She's a sorcerer. And coincidentally enough, she hasn't listed here, but she's a divine soul sorcerer. So what I've done is I've decided that her divine soul aspect of her sorceress magic is this Tatiana spirit. It's kind of like taken like a passenger seat with her. It's not gonna like talk to her or anything weird or like influence her in any real way. I don't know. It's just, I don't even really know how she got it. Again, doesn't matter. She'll probably figure something out and all. The player character for Leah here loves to theorize. She'll probably come up with a good one that I'll roll with. Just because, you know, better at it than me, right? So take the free writing. But that's what I've done, is I've made Leah the focus, the reincarnation of Tatiana. And Irina is just someone that Strahd is interested in. And you can kind of play the module pretty much the same, at least at the beginning. It changes kind of your end goals with Irina. Initially, you're trying to get to Irina to like a certain pool or something, and she like reunites with Sergio, the long lost love, and they fly off into the sunset, and you know, rainbows and sparkles appear, and Strahd is mad because you got rid of her. Who cares? All that stuff is lame anyway. It's dumb. It's dumb. You heard it. I said it's dumb. So basically, my goal is just Irina, just trying to get her safe, get her away from Strahd because he's a womanizer. He's predatory. He's just trying to go after her because he's interested in her. And at some point, Strahd's going to key in on the fact that Leah's got Tatiana's soul in it. She's hidden it between this, like, half-elven blood. Tatiana, originally a woman. A woman? Oh, my God, dude, really? A human is what I wanted to say. Oh, lordy. That's a yikes. So, I'm kind of playing it off as, like, this half-elven blood is throwing him for a loop initially. And it's kind of funny. She has this whole like heterochromia thing going on with like you know, black and white hair that's like very I don't know. I get like a very almost like Todoroki from My Hero vibe, like half and half kind of deal going on with this. And so that's kind of how I'm playing it off, is that Tatiana is like one of these halves and Leia's influence is the other half, basically. And of course, the character doesn't know, the player and the character don't know anything about any of this, right? That this is something that they're going to discover in time as they learn more about it. So that was really the only tie that I had for Leah. I was not able to come up with a second tie for her, but I felt that since I kind of made her like the pivotal point of the campaign, I didn't really mind only having one tie with her because it's a very strong one, right? It's one that's not going to see a lot of play early, but it's going to be very, very important later. Now, some of you who may have played this adventure or know something about it may be saying, but Folon, I see a big problem with your plan here. Strahd doesn't want to kill Tatiana. He wants to romance her. So what happens if they fight? Strahd isn't going to want to kill this player, and that's giving that player basically an unfair advantage, right? Strahd's not going to target her. And to which I say, you're right to some extent. When Strahd, the way I have this kind of planned out in my mind is that when Strahd figures out that Leah here is indeed the reincarnation of Tatiana, or at least has her soul with her, I don't think she's really a reincarnation. Oh, excuse me. But at least when he figures out that she has Tatiana's soul with her, he's going to try and romance her, right? He's going to be very aggressive about it and, like, you know, do his whole Strahd womanizer thing. And I can already go ahead and guarantee you, just based on the player and the character, Leah and the player of Leah is not going to have any of it. They're not going to be happy. No way, no how. Get out of here, you weirdo creep. Honestly, if they throw me a curveball and they're into it, that's a whole new story, and that's going to be a whole wild thing in and of its own, which may be even more interesting than the way I foresee it going. But the way I see this going, she's not going to have any of it, right? And Strahd's going to get more and more desperate, and he's going to get more and more pushy and more aggressive about it. And basically the way I see this going is that when he eventually realizes that no matter what he does, Leah's not going to go for him, he's kind of going to just resign himself to be like, all right, well, if you're not going to fall for me, then I'm just going to kill you and try again on the next reincarnation. Right? So that's really by the time that Strahd has become an actual threat to the group, in the sense of like he's actively going after them to kill them, or to, you know, not necessarily personally, but he's actually sending stuff with the intent to kill the party. He will have reached that point naturally by then. And that kind of goes into a bit more of Strahd's psyche, in that he's kind of just likes to toy with the party for a long time while they gather resources and power. And eventually at some point when they kind of become scary is when he's going to actually start really throwing actual firepower at them. But a lot of the early levels is just him kind of like playing with them, right? Playing with his food, because he's bored, right? He's a bored, all-powerful being in this land with nothing to do, right? But that's kind of my backstory on all these characters and how they ended up getting here. And again, just to reinforce that my whole goal is I want, if you're a player, if you're a DM, whatever it is, really try and figure out some way to tie your character into your stories. If you're playing a pre-made, then you'll have to do some changes often to get them working the way you want them to. If you're doing a homebrew, it's not really an issue, because typically homebrew settings, from my personal experience with them, it's very easy to meld them around characters, because, you know, you just make stuff up as you go, right? You're completely writing everything, so you don't have to like do any tweaking really. You just, you know, oh, you want it to be this way, it is this way, boom, done, right? So that's my big advice, my big takeaway is do your best to incorporate as much of your character's backstories into the campaign as you can. It'll be more rewarding for them. It'll be way cooler to watch them go through and explore that, right? And expound upon it. And so now that I've got kind of I've basically explained to you all their deal and also refreshed myself on it. I guess I'll talk about where they left off and where I see them going, in that they went to, the party ended up going to the old bone grinder, the windmill, that I'm not going to do a whole rundown of everything that's happened in the campaign up until this point, just because that'll take a while. We did a good number of sessions. There's a lot of ground to cover on that. So you may need to, I don't know, if you're fresh in this, you didn't really miss a ton. You can probably just pick it up where it goes. But basically, the party picked up Irina. Ismark asked them to deliver her either to the church in Vallaki that's run by Old Man Jenkins. I don't remember his name. The priest that you have to go get the thigh bone for, or to bring her to well, no, excuse me, that's incorrect. He just asked to bring her to Vallaki because he believes Vallaki is a safe city, and to some extent it kind of is, like, safer than just a wilderness from Strahd, but nothing in this place is really safe from Strahd. So he asked them, the party, to bring her either there or to the abbey in Kresk that's run by the what's his name? He's just called like the Saint or something. Where is it? Village of Kresk, Abbey of Saint Markovia. What's this dude's name? Hold on, I want to figure this out now. I've completely forgotten. That's like an actual name. Whatever, I'll figure it out later. There's like a diva in disguise, a big angel hanging out there who's running the abbey, and there's a lot of weird stuff going on there, but basically, Ismark, who is Irina's brother, tasked the party with taking her to one of those two locations just so she'll be safe from Strahd, presumably, right? And so along the way, let me just yeet us back to the overworld map here. They started down here in the village, they went along, they came over here to Serpool. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier, in that, you know, hey, Folon, you've written all of these tie-ins for characters, but how are they ever going to figure any of this out? Well, you see, In Curse of Strahd, there's a fortune-telling reading that's part of the adventure, where they run into this old lady fortune teller who basically tells them, "Hey, here's the location of all of the artifacts." She gives them like vague notes for where the different artifacts are: the book, the holy symbol, and the sword. She gives them a hint as to who their ally will be against Strahd, and she also tells them where they'll be able to find Strahd in his castle. And that's written in the adventure. One other side note I want to give is that if you're running this adventure, I would recommend reading through all of the possible options of the fortune reading beforehand, and honestly, rig it. Just find the ones that you think are going to be the most interesting and make sure those are the correct outcomes. If you're playing in person, it's going to be a little bit harder if your players want to see you like shuffle the deck in front of them or something. Unless you've got like actual sleight of hand skills in real life, that's going to be a little tough. But online, it was very easy for me to rig this up and just make it fake. Because there's some real stinkers in there. There's some real bad options in some of them. They give you a lot of options and some of them are not great. Give me a moment while I take a hydration break. So that's another piece of advice if you're running this campaign. Rig it, find the ones that you think are coolest, and make sure those come out. Because there are some really, really cool ones, and it'd be a shame if you get some of the really bad ones instead because of luck of the draw. But what I also did was, in addition to kind of this group reading about their fortunes and where everything is and whatnot, I also had Madame Ava here do individual readings for all of my characters. And what I did was I kind of wrote up some like very cryptic sounding like lore-y nonsense that alludes to all of these things about them and to their backstories. And unfortunately, I seem to have lost my notes for them. I wouldn't read them out anyway. There's no real point. Sorry, but that's how I personally found a way to tie all of this in. If you aren't running something with a fortune teller, it may be more difficult. You may also just have to like kind of lean in heavily into the fact that it will be discovered naturally. As long as you've put them in locations that you think your players are likely to go, then they will probably figure it out. That's another really big hint, or well, not even a hint, a tip, I suppose, is that your players are more perceptive than you will ever give them credit for. To this day, I still think that, oh, my players are never going to figure this out, and they do it immediately. And the reason for that, and you may be saying like, oh, well, how can they figure it out so quickly, compared to you? You have like the book and can figure everything out. Not true. Here's the thing. Your players are always going to be able to outthink you because there's more of them than you. It doesn't matter how mega mind giga brain you are. Me, I have 4 players. I'm fighting a 1v4 here on like the freaking, the mind games, right? I'm never going to be able to come up with something so like obscure and masterful that is slowly revealed over time that one of these 4 people isn't going to be able to figure out lickety split. And the only way that I will be able to do that is if I just hide it completely and then it never shows up, right? It's a losing battle, is what I've learned. I've tried many times. Maybe I'm just bad at it. I don't know. But one of your players is going to be able to figure your grand scheme out. And then it just becomes a game of trying to hide it for as long as you can, which can also be fun. But then there's also always, like I said earlier, the big payoff of, hey, we figured it out. I called it. Which, to be fair, is a good feeling as a player. So that's my other tip here. Oh, I've given a lot of tips that have made no sense. If you just take even one bit away from this video, congratulations. I don't know how you did it. I can't explain anything. I just ramble forever. But yeah, they went to Serpool, they got their readings done, yada yada. They basically traveled up here. They didn't really encounter a lot. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the road encounters in Curse of Strahd. I kind of just gave them some like creepy encounters where like some wolves are watching them over here in like the woods or something. I had them some like berserkers fight them at one point just to give them a taste of combat because it'd been a while, and I know a couple of the players are really into the combat, so I wanted to give them the chance to just hit some stuff and let off some steam, right? I think I also did like one of the grave encounters where it's like, you see like a body hanging from like a tree or whatever, and one of the players is like, hey, that looks like me, and then they turn back and it's not, sort of deal. There's a lot of cool stuff like that that's written in that if you've really got a mind for gothic horror, you can expand upon. I tend to struggle with that a bit, so a lot of the road encounters to me are kind of poor. So most of the time, I just kind of speed travel my players through there. So they ended up at this windmill here, the old bone grinder, which is occupied by hags. Now, as written, all 3 hags are here. Morgotha and her two sisters here are all hanging out here. What they do here is that they make these dream pies that they sell to people. And the dream pies are like addictive. They're drugs, basically, that give you really, really good dreams, but you crash the next morning. Everything else seems like horrible by comparison. And that's kind of their scheme, I suppose. And as written, all three of them are hanging out here when your players arrive. However, the other thing that's important about the old bone grinder is that the hags currently have two children imprisoned up here. You can see them both up here. They're hidden from the players right now because we'll get to what happened later. But they just keep them in like dog crates. And when I was reading this bit to prep it, I was like, there is actually a -% chance that my players don't walk in here, see two children in dog crates, and don't just draw their swords on these old women. Like, there's no way, right? Like, that's insanity. You know, there's just no chance. And the problem with that is, honestly, you know, I would agree to it to some extent, where it's like, yeah, like, you know, they're clearly evil, let's get them. The problem is that these old women are night hags, which, if you're not aware, they're pretty spooky. They're CR 5, so the way the CR is kind of a busted system, but it's roughly intended that one night hag is for a party of 4 5th level adventurers. That's a little extreme in my book, but they're pretty beefy. 17 AC, 112 health, like, they're spooky, and their attacks are pretty yikes. I mean, a +7 to hit. So, like, who's got the best AC out of my group here? It's probably not Praetor. It's probably Garrick. But it's probably, yeah, just like a 15. No, it actually is Praetor at a 15. Maybe Roland? Yeah. So they need what? A 7 or an 8 on a D20 to hit them. And they're going to hit them for, on average, 13 health. It's like half of people's health, right? 28, Roland's probably around there as well, 25. Garrick's the only person who can take a hit from these things, and there's 3 of them. And the thing that you may not know about hags is that when there are 3 or more of them, they get their coven abilities, which basically, they have some spells that they can cast, which this also makes them spooky individually. But when there's 3 of them, they get way more spells, and the spells are way scarier. Like, one of these hags throwing out an eye bite, there's no chance. The party has actually no chance. At their level 4. Like, I don't ever see a way that this combat goes where they're not just, the floor isn't just mopped with them. Like, there's no chance. And they have no way of knowing that because these are just like creepy old women, right? So what I did was I took one of the hags away. I took the leader, Morgotha. She's the one that is often selling the dream pies. I basically yeeted her out. So the point being, that there's only 2 night hags. That means they don't get all their coven abilities. Morgotha, depending if they choose to fight or flee, I don't know, may show up later, but she's going to show up to the fight late. I'm never going to have them deal with the coven stuff because, like, there's no way. I would have to just completely ignore this rule. And even then, 3 of them versus the 4 party members, there's no chance. There's no chance. Even if these hags are just clawing at people, like, it's going to be a really, really, really tough fight. Throwing in this spellcasting bit is going to be way too much for them. Not to mention the fact that they have resistance to non-silvered weapons, so all of my players are going to be doing half damage. They're also resistant to cold and fire, so our one spellcaster, her damaging spells are Frostbolt and Firebolt, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Firebolt, Ray of Frost. So, like, you know, their health pool is effectively doubled. They effectively have, 224 health. And it's just, there's no chance. The way I see this is the hags here, what kind of led them into the situation that they're in. You may notice that we've got poor Praetor here who's been cornered by 2 of them. He's not going to have a good time. But they got wind of the kids in the crates, and they were pretty suspicious about it. And through some intense roleplay, they unfortunately weren't able to get anything out of Morgotha's 2 sisters. So they left. The sorcerer, Leah here, disguised herself as Morgotha using Alter Self. Really cool spell, by the way. I love her spell choice. She chose Alter Self and Detect Thoughts, 2 really cool spells. And went back in. and tried to suss out like what their plans were for these kids. Basically, what Morgotha's Coven sisters, the lie they spun is that they're like, oh, we have these kids in these cages for their own good. It's to protect them, because if they run off and wander off into the wilderness, they'll die by wolves. Absolute nonsense. What's happening with the Dream Pies is that they're killing kids and using the meat in the Dream Pies. That's just straight up how it's written in the book. But they're not going to tell people that, right? Like, that's crazy. So that's the lie that they were spun. The players didn't really believe it, but they weren't confident enough to just draw swords immediately on that. So they had Leah go in and basically try to suss out what's going on. Unfortunately, she was unsuccessful in that, just through kind of asking the wrong questions and unfortunate circumstances. And eventually she was discovered, and well, both the hags, night hags have this ability to go onto the ethereal plane, right? They can just pull out their hearthstone, yeet onto the ethereal plane. It effectively gone, right? They both went to the ethereal plane. The way I did this is that they took the kids with them. I don't think hags can technically do this, but like, who cares, right? It's a more interesting story, I feel, if they pull the kids away, because now the players are going to have to deal with this situation in one way or another. They're either going to have to give up on these kids, or they're going to have to deal with these hags. I'm not going to let them just, take the kids out and run and scot-free. Now we never deal with that, And what ended up happening is that while they were searching for the hags, trying to figure out where they went, 3 of the party members, Roland, Garrick, and Leah, went up here to check on the kids, found out that they're not there. And poor Praetor, he had the mindset to watch out a window down here to see if anyone was approaching. Well, the bad thing about that is that since he separated himself from the party, when you're on the ethereal plane, you can see everything happening on the prime material plane. So these 2 hag sisters saw poor Praetor here alone, and basically just appeared right behind him. And that's where we left off the last session. Now, normally, this would mean Praetor is a very, very dead man. He's a level 4 ranger who is currently staring down 2 night hags who literally, if they just attack him twice, he will probably just die. There's a very large chance that even with just their claw attack, he will just die. So what instead I'm going to probably have them do is I'm going to have one of them like taunt, maybe claw at him a bit. I've considered maybe just nerfing them to some degree, like cutting down their health and AC. I don't know, like maybe I could use a different hag template, like a green hag or something that's a bit more reasonable for this level. I'm not entirely sure how I want to go about that. I think that's what I definitely want to cut this down, because I don't see my players running. They're not really the run away from conflict type, and I'd feel really, really bad if they died here, right? Or if anyone really died. So I think I'm probably going to switch these to green hags or something. Maybe sea hags, I don't know. I want it to still be a challenging fight, but I don't want it to be an impossible one, because like there's no fun in that. What's probably going to end up happening here, though, is even though these 2 hags are nerfed, they're going to get the drop on them. They've got surprise. Like, it's a really bad situation for Praetor here, so I'm probably just going to have them like kick him out the window. They're not really concerned with killing the party. They really just want to scare him off. So one of them's going to kick him out the window. He'll take like his d6 of fall damage and, be on his merry way. Then he can do whatever he wants from there. And Praetor gets to live, is kind of what I've decided here. The hags are not going to mess with Irina just because Strahd is eyeing Irina, and they know well enough not to come between Strahd and what he wants, lest you get run through in the process. That's kind of my tentative plans here. Nerfing these down to green hags or something should be enough, I think. I'd have to pull up my monster manual and really look, but I'm definitely gonna cut these down. Drop their AC, drop their health, probably remove the resistance, or maybe not remove the resistance and just drop their health. One or the other. I'm not entirely sure yet. Might just keep their health normal and drop the resistance. I don't know. Haven't fully decided on that yet. But that's the game plan here. I expect this combat to be a long one. When we play, we do 4-hour sessions. I'm guesstimating this is going to be like an hour. Maybe more, depending on how this goes. If they really get stuck in and fighting, it could take longer, because there's going to be some recap, whatnot, as well. So I've tentatively planned for an hour, if not more. But I tend to like to lean on the shorter side so that I have more stuff prepped in case things go faster than I intend. Because, I don't know, round 1, they might all just, like, run, and then I've got to have stuff for the rest of the 3 hours and 50 minutes, right? So that's my tentative plans for this combat. If they do stick it out, I'm not gonna throw something impossible at them. They don't know that, of course, obviously. You know, they're not gonna like that's one of the biggest illusions that I think you should keep as a DM is that you're not out to kill your players, right? Like there's no point in that. I don't know, at least I don't think you should be. Maybe if you're like level 20 or something and your players are steamrolled everything and they're getting bored and you're like, all right, well now I got to find some way to challenge them. At that point, you're probably going to be designing encounters with the intent to kill. But these guys, they've never played before. They're level 4. Like, even then, most of those levels they just got from Death House. They went 1 through 3, and then you get your 4th level at Sarepool. Like, it kind of boosts you pretty early, so they haven't really gotten a lot of playtime with these characters. So I don't want to just, like, end someone, right? Like, there's no point in that. It doesn't help anyone. So this combat's going to be a lot less deadly than intended. That's about all there is on that. Moving on to what they will do afterwards, whether or not they fight it or they flee it or whatever they decide to do here. They're probably going to have like an RP encounter back at the crossroads here, depending on how this goes. If they ran away, they're probably going to talk for a while and try and figure out something to do about those kids. They may do some like night escapade thing where they sneak in and try and get them out. They all have a pretty strong moral compass, so I have a hard time believing that they're just going to leave those kids there. If they do kill the hags and get the kids out, then they're going to RP and talk to the kids and figure out where you're from, yada yada. I'm going to have both the kids be from Vallaki, just because it's kind of where they're going anyway. And I don't want them to have to like trek all the way back to Barovia for no reason, right? Like, so they're probably just gonna be rando kids from Vallaki. I don't know. Maybe they'll be from like the Vistani encampment here. One of them will be. I don't know. Haven't fully decided yet. But from there, my players are definitely gonna go up to Vallaki. It's really where they're heading. And this is going to be a multi-session city. If you know anything about Curse of Strahd, Vallaki is massive. Oh, there's so much stuff happening in this city. Just an absolute crazy amount of stuff. I mean, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maps in and of itself. So, what I kind of foresee my players doing is I imagine they're going to go in here. I need to be ready. One of the prophecy items, the Book of Strahd, is located here. It's in Rectavio's wagon. Rectavio, he's a vampire hunter who snuck his way into Barovia. He's trying to kill Strahd, but he's undercover as like a carnival guy, essentially. So I imagine they're gonna find that pretty quick. It's kind of obvious what they're looking for in that regards. They'll run into Rectavio. They'll have some talks with him. I also foresee them going to the church. Just because it's kind of like anytime there's a church in a place, they tend to beeline for it. At least they did in Barovia. They were like, yo, there's a church, we got to go there, right? That's where the vampires would be down. Or, well, that's where the vampires would be weakest, right? Is at the church. As if. But, oh, excuse me. If they do end up going to the church, that's a very easy tie into the Bone of St. Andral. Is that his name, if I remember right? Where basically like it was stolen and it's in the coffin maker's shop here, and I'm prepared to go through all of that really. Poor Henrik here, he's under duress by all these vampire spawn. This is another encounter that I highly doubt they're going to get to in the same session as the hag encounter, just because there's got to be a lot of RP and whatnot between these. However, this, like the hag session, is also a very scary encounter. Individual vampire spawns are really spooky. They got regeneration. Again, they're CR5. 15 AC is not that bad. 82 hit points, but they're resistant to like pretty much everything. So again, you might as well double this. But their damage output is a lot spookier if you're not using any sort of like spells from the hags. Just because of their multi-attack. They don't do as much damage on an individual hit, but the bite is very bad. Reducing max hit points is very bad. So what I'm thinking about doing is that these vampire spawns are like just hidden in boxes and whatnot. And I'm probably going to see, it depends on when my players do this. They might do this encounter at day or at night. I don't know. I really hope they do it at day. Because if they do it at day, I'm going to have all these windows like boarded and shuttered up. And that way what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to break them open and have the light stream in and kill the vampire's regeneration and really have like a cool kind of... back, foul demon, back, you fiend, as they're like, these vampires are cowering away from the beams of light coming in. If they do this at night, I'm probably just going to remove some of these vampire spawns. I might just have them fight like 3 of them or something. Maybe 4. I don't know. It depends. It depends. Because when they pick up the book, I'm going to have them level up. But I tend to do level ups after sessions, not in the middle of them. So if this happens in the same session, I'll probably just have them fight 4 of them. And that should be fine, I think. Maybe just 3, because I really want to utilize their spider climb. That's one of the features that they have, is that they can just like walk around on walls and whatnot. So yeah, I think I'll probably just have 3, and I'll have like the other 3 lurking about somewhere else, doing something else in the meantime. They'll run into them somewhere else, maybe, maybe not, I don't know. They might just be spying in the middle of the night. But I want to have like I can already see like a cool tactical moment where I can already tell like Garrick is going to like hang out right here. He's the barbarian. He's going to choke it off. They're going to have like the rogue slipping around doing rogue things. Ranger's probably going to be standing on a box here shooting away, and along with Leah blasting bolts. And like the first vampire spawn's going to run up and slap Garrick like they expect him to. And then the next one's going to like run along the ceiling and just go right for the caster or something. Kind of have that like spooky moment, I guess, with that. And I feel like this room is really designed for that, with how this like choke point is here. There's even a trap here. What even is this? I need to figure out what that is at some point. But it feels like they really kind of like want to debate you into trying to do like a Thermopylae funnel here, like 300 them, and then the vampire spawns just like spider climb their way around it and say, "Joke's on you, now you're surrounded." So I think that'll be an interesting, intense encounter. From what I know about the module, this vampire spawn encounter and that hag encounter are 2 of the deadliest ones, just because of when they happen. They happen really early for their effective CR. So that's kind of why I'm looking for ways around it, like cutting down the numbers or something. My players are new, so they're not like veterans. They don't know optimal strats or anything like that, right? They're still competent, don't get me wrong, but even like for a seasoned group, at level 4, with 4 of you, 6 vampire spawns is a ridiculous fight. Like, especially, that's a tough fight if you go into it knowing they're there and like prepping for it, and it's still gonna be tough. If they get the drop on you, that's a deadly fight. That's when you run from. Like, there's no way. And I want to really avoid that kind of stuff. Other places of interest that I could maybe see them going based on how they are, they might go to the Blue Wachter, or not the Blue Wachter, what's it called? The Blue Water Inn. The Wachter House is something else. They might head here, just as kind of like a reprieve, I suppose, from the, blah, 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 from just how, like, bleak the world is. And, if they do go here, then they're obviously going to run into the Mardikovs, the Were-Ravens. And I haven't fully decided how the Were-Ravens are going to help them out yet. I kind of want to keep them, like, I don't want it to be obvious. They might just have, like, a normal inn encounter. I might put Rictavio in here or something. I don't know. Who else is in here? Oh, yeah, these are the tracker guys. They'll probably learn of the Annabelle quest line here. There's a dude who likes to go fishing in the lake up here, but he doesn't catch anything. But lately, what ends up happening is he's taken a young girl that he intends to sacrifice to the lake to try and catch fish. The players are probably going to get wind of that here at the Blue Water Inn from someone, maybe one of these tracker guys. I don't know. Yeah, the Mardikovs, they do tell about the Wizard of the Wine. They give that quest line. So they'll probably hear of that. They might decide to pursue that. I don't know, but that should be enough for one session as like a general run. I'm not going to show myself reading all of like the dialogue and stuff in this video just because I think that's kind of boring. I'm kind of just talking through my thought process of how I go about planning in case anyone's curious of what it's like. So I think that's probably where I'm going to end this. Oh my God, it's been like an hour and a half. I'm so sorry. If you listen to me ramble this whole time, you're a real champ. I'm very sorry for you. So yeah, I think that's where I'm going to call it. Let me know what you guys think of this kind of video. I don't mind necessarily doing more of them. They won't be this long all the time because I'm not going to go through every character's backstory every single time. They'll probably be like 30 minutes or something of me just kind of roughly guesstimating where things are going to go, whatnot, if I do more of them. If you guys are interested, let me know. If you have any questions, about any of this. I'll do my best to answer them in the comments where I can. Obviously, if it like blows up or something and there's like a bajillion questions, I'm only going to answer to what time allows me. So yeah, and I guess if you're interested, let me know, and I'll do more of them if people want to see more of this. This is a test run. And if you have any ideas for any like storyboarding or anything like that, if you're like, oh, I think what you've done with, I don't know, I've got a better idea for Praetor's character arc that you could work in or something, just like hit me up. You know, maybe I'll take it into account. I don't know. Maybe I'll shout you out in the next video if I like your idea. We'll see. So on that note, I am going to call it here. Thank you again for watching. And yeah, the closing remarks, I really just want to kind of tee everything off with you really don't have to be like, you don't have to be crazy like special, or there's no like real trick or anything that you need to know to play D&D. If you are interested in playing D&D and you have the drive to learn and play the game, that's all you need to play the game. Just start picking it up and playing it, man. And, you know, you're going to make mistakes along the way and you'll learn from them. And I mean, hell, I've been playing this for like years now and I still make mistakes. And I've been playing like one system prominently and I still make mistakes in it, right? It's fine. You know, there's no D&D police that are going to come and take away your D&D license because you messed up how cover rules work or something, or you did the chase mechanics wrong. Like, nobody cares, right? And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get across with this video. Anyway, now I'm actually going to end it. I know I said I would 3 minutes ago. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you have a great rest of your night. And if this convinced you to pick up D&D, then I'm excited for you. It's really fun. And good luck. Thanks again. Bye-bye.